Right, we've got a small village in the mountains here, far away from anywhere, and they're thinking about spending 50 grand on a wind turbine or 20 grand on a hydroelectric generator. Right, part A. The question is, why is it uneconomical to connect this village to the national grid? Well, pretty obvious, isn't it? Okay, in the exam, just say that it's a remote community, so because they're a long way from the infrastructure of the national grid, it's going to be very costly to build the power lines to connect them because it's a long distance and power lines are expensive. And it's only servicing a small village, so a lot of expense for just a few people, so it's very uneconomical. Okay, right, on to the main bit of the question, part B. They have the choice of buying a wind turbine for 50 grand. It gives an average output, because the wind is unreliable, of 10 kilowatts. Or a hydroelectric generator for 20 grand, but it gives you a constant output of 8 kilowatts. And you have to write a mini essay comparing the advantages and disadvantages of both, worth 6 marks. Okay, questions like this, just saying the bleeding obvious can get you a long way. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, let's start with the advantages of wind power. Okay? Just state the bleeding obvious. Wind power gives you more power. Okay, so more power than the hydroelectric. I'm writing a shorthand because I'm not going to write a whole essay, but you have to write it out in full, nice, lovely sentences. But the point is, they told you that. Just write down the obvious and it gets you a lot of marks. Okay? So, next, let's do disadvantages of wind. Okay, just say the obvious. It's more expensive. Simple. So you've got 2 marks already just from saying the obvious and what they've already told you. Okay, the other thing, 10 kilowatts on average, and that's a clue. It's wind power. You can't guarantee the wind is going to be blowing all the time, so it's unreliable. Also, these wind turbines kill birds and bats. So they're pretty nasty things for the wildlife. But in my limited knowledge of this, I do understand that apparently they don't kill that many birds as long as they're not built in major migratory pathways of the birds. But if a bird flies into one, they still get killed. Anyway, so they're bad for wildlife, but bad for birds. Okay, right, what next? Advantages of hydroelectric. Okay, I bet you there's an obvious one. Yeah, it's cheaper. Also, it's constant power. The stream is always flowing, or the river's always flowing. You get a constant, uninterrupted 8 kilowatts. So it's reliable. Reliable 8 kilowatts. Okay, disadvantages of hydro. It's obvious again, less power. Anything else? Yeah, similar. Might be bad for fish. Might interrupt the ecosystem or the water life. in the river. So bad for fish. Okay. Probably, not guaranteed, but probably. Okay, right. Advantages of both. Well, this is green energy, which is great, right? How would we write green energy? No, it's best to describe it as renewable, I think. Okay, very important. It's great, these things. Not having to plug yourself into the national grid is brilliant. If you can have an an isolated energy supply, that's fantastic. So it's renewable and it doesn't emit CO2. As a side note, I'll go into this in much more detail in other videos, but carbon dioxide itself is not bad for you. Carbon dioxide is not poisonous. We breathe it in and out all the time with every breath, and it's actually essential. Plants need it to make CO2 and to make oxygen and glucose. So CO2 is not an evil gas per se. It's just that it's good at absorbing heat energy from the sun, so it traps the energy in the atmosphere, which again is necessary, otherwise we'd freeze. It's the greenhouse effect. It's just that when there's too much CO2, we get too hot. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. Like I say, I'll cover that in other videos. Anyway, right. Right, disadvantages of both. What have we got? Yeah, these wind turbines are pretty ugly. Okay, you probably shouldn't write ugly. Eyesore is probably better. Visual pollutant, maybe. And they also might be noisy. Okay, I hope I've impressed upon you that just saying very obvious things from stuff they tell you can get you a lot of marks. Probably at least 4 marks in this question. But there you go. That's how you should approach these sort of questions, but you have to write them out in nice, neat sentences. Don't do it in bullet points because it tells you to write a short essay. Okay, 6 marks, there you go.